So this sermon all started when I read what was supposed to be a joke from Umberto Eco, the great philosopher and poet and thinker. He wanted to entertain himself someday, and so he sent out a fake job description for academics. And it was to be the professor of Ars Obligiano, of the forgotten. And it was a very well-written job description. You had to have qualifications. You had to know a lot so you could forget a lot. You had to have degrees in various languages and be able to read literature in those languages. And he got a lot of applications. And mostly they were people who said, oh my God, I've already forgotten everything that I know. I should be good at this. Another person said, I have had spiritual Alzheimer's since the beginning of time. Since about age 9, I should be good at this too. And so, of course, he had to start responding to them and saying that the position didn't exist, much as they wanted it. And somehow I couldn't get this out of my mind. There's a play about it, a 3-acter, short, very interesting, and it's a real rant against forgetting. It says you can't forget. It is impossible to forget. People say they forget, but they never do. And they never can, because all that is hidden from you in the act of forgetting is still there someplace, swirling around in your belly or your soul or your unconscious, and it will come out. Like the text says, all that is hidden will be revealed. It's just a question of time. So you can really try to forget, but you will fail. So forget about it. I hadn't thought of that, but that's good. Forget about forgetting, because you can't. So then I got interested in why people would be so interested in a job description that was ridiculous. And I realized that I had been reading a very long story in the New York Times about the proper way to do bouillabaisse in Marseille. How many of you saw it? It was like 4 pages, a lot of print. And I realized that not only did a woman named Sophie Stuber go there and taste every bouillabaisse in Marseille, but she also had an assistant who accompanied her, Elaine Sciolini. If you want to read the article August 7th, you can find out more than you want to know and couldn't possibly ever forget about bouillabaisse. And the right way to do it is to make the broth and the fish soup and all of that and throw the fish in it at the last minute and then take the fish out and eat it. That's the idea of the proper way to do it. But I got to thinking, maybe they need somebody to go research food someplace. And that if I saw a job description, you know, to find the best rice pudding in the world, I wonder if the Times would give me 2 or 3 pages to write about it, and an assistant. So I started imagining other job descriptions that might be really interesting to have. And the third one I came up with was reading in the AARP magazine that there's an 80-year-old who actually gets paid by cruise ships to be partners to women who are cruising alone and to dance with them. And he only works 4 hours a night. That could be a pretty good job. I can dance with women. I could even dance with him. So that was another job I thought about. Then I heard about another job that was someone who wrote dating biographies for people. Hooray, Doris is here. Welcome back. Doris has been in rehab and she's here. This is a miracle. That's a good one. So this other job description was to be writing dating profiles for people. And what you do is you try to come up with a paragraph that is really about the person so that when they get the date online, they recognize it. And she said that the lines that she kept repeating and were getting the most traction were two. One was that so-and-so is a real fixer-upper, and you have to take her or him as is. And that was a popular dating thing. So I thought, I could do that. I could write off-key, sort of self-putting down things that would get people dates. Then there's a lot more stuff, but I'm not going to do them now. What I'm interested in is this flight of texts that we just read, that Tony read so beautifully, that really connect. A lot of people have put them together over time because they show what God has as a job description according to the psalmist, then corrected by Luke. That God's job description is to be a consoler and a comforter. But long before God had that job description, God, of course, had the job of creation, creativity, and then of judging, kind of keeping people on the right path. God also had the job of thinking and redeeming, but we almost never think of God as the consoler, even though David, the writer of these Psalms we just read, really thinks that's God's main job description, is to comfort us, hide us, protect us, and the verb, I think, is the verb cleft, that God has a job of clefting us. So I thought about how you get a job clefting people. It's like that game of hide and seek, isn't it, that you play as a child? Where do you find a place to hide? You know, if you're out in the country, kids hide in rocks. There are clefts in rocks. There are real places where you fit in and you wait. And when you're hiding, what is it that you really want to have happen? You want to be found. The worst thing that can happen to a kid playing hide and seek is to not be found. I mean, they kind of can't find you. Your hiding place is so good, and that they give up on you. So what is consolation? Have a really good hiding place, but to be found. And when God comes to console, it's like being found. I was really here all the time. This was the real me. And what is the language of coming out of a cleft, a clefted rock? It's like coming out, like the debutante who first shows the world what she has, or like the man or woman who lets their parents know that they're gay. When you come out and say, hey, it's me. This is the real me. This is the good me. You liked me so much that you played the game with me, that you found me. So God's role as the one who hides us long enough that we can be public long enough. Do you see it happening? Where you're in and then you're out. You're alone and then you're in community. You're all quiet and a little worried, and then you come out and people recognize you. What these things mean for us, I think, here at Judson right now are many, but I wanted to not only give a shout out to Zach today, but also get ready to our standing committees who have job descriptions. It's an interesting time to have a job at Judson Memorial Church. Raise your hand if you're a chair of a standing committee. Yeah. So much is going on here right now that involves so much that we have. There's no roof on the building right now. When it rains and we have activities, you have to put down tarps to make sure the equipment doesn't get rusty. We really don't have enough money to do all of this, but because we are people who are consoled and clefted, one of these days we'll let the world know we don't have enough money in just the right way that they'll give it to us. Because you don't want to be standing inside a rock saying, we don't have enough. You want to come out and say, we're going to find it. you're going to find a way to be so consoled and so comforted and so unconfused that when you come out and say, this is who we really are, it works. So what are the job descriptions of something called a church for the people in charge? The moderator with his fire extinguisher, that was really interesting. Michael, where are you? I can't see that well. Really interesting. The moderator is having to make us safe enough to come out. The committees are having to make us safe enough and ordered enough to come out and do our thing. Someone said at a meeting this last week that Judson is really a 501c3 with a church attached to it. That really pissed me off. I've already spoken to him about it at length, and it was really interesting at the staff meeting after we heard this that I wasn't the only one who brought this up. Because all the things that we do here, including the dogs and the production companies, are godly, are good, are mission consistent for a church. A church is not a barge. A church is a tugboat. Our success depends on how many immigrants get refuge. Our success depends on how many artists have a place to perform. Our success depends on unbelievers getting another picture of what it means to be church. They don't have to do anything about it, but they do have to have a sense that maybe God is kind, and God is consolation, and God is not just a judge. That's what we're here for, and these purposes mean that we tug along at the barge of the social order. It's not all about us. It's all about us and us. That's what we do. So in this flight, you know, like you get a wine flight or a cheese flight, in this flight of scriptures, just look at them again from the point of view of first being inside the rock, being clefted. There's nothing covered, they say, that will not be revealed, nor hidden, that will not be known. You're not going to be stuck in the rock. You can overdo hiding, and God knows many of us do. You can stay in the rock so long that you not only get damp, but you get moldy. You're in the rock for a while to come out. Hiding places are scary. You can get very comfortable in them. So the promise from the Luke version of the story, the next testament, is that all will be seen and all will be known and it will be good. Also, look at those about the shade. I love the notion that God provides us shade. You know, the one thing on the border, there's no shade. Unprotected people standing out in the hot sun. God promises to protect us, to shade us. And then I just love the Augusta Melville story. I don't know how many of you got to read it. It's a great, great story by Jill Lepore, whose writing only gets better and better every day, about Melville's sister, Augusta. Melville destroyed all his work, he thought. He burnt it. He really didn't want it around. He was so afraid that he would be too revealed or reviled that he got rid of his stuff. And so his sister secreted it away, only for it to be discovered and for him to be able to become the great writer, great wacky, angry, weird writer that he was. And he was shaded by his sister. He was helped by his sister. So when we think about Clefted, I find myself thinking about being able to cleft others. Why don't you go there and hide for a while? Why don't you go there and rest for a while? How long do you need? And then I think about myself going to look for people who've been hiding for too long and comfortable for too long, and saying, how can I make you come out? How can I help you find a little disturbance? And these, I think, are the jobs of churches, not just pastors, of congregations, not just pastors, of committees, not just pastors, of churches and 501c3s, not just 501c3s, and not just churches. So in this time when somebody's gone and blown the roof off this place, in this time, let us also be clefted, sheltered, and shaded. Amen.